In today's session, we are playing in an insane 1-3 game where we face an opponent who calls every hand. We get into a massive bomb pot where we hit quads as I try and keep up on my mortgage payments as a professional poker player.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Poker Vlog. We are headed out to another cash game session. We are looking to mix it up. We got to pay this mortgage somehow, and no better way to do it than with somebody else's money. Let's get into it. We are about to play a very exciting session. Going to be a lot of good hands, bringing you guys that table footage. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Let's get into it.
Jumping right into the action, we've got ace queen offsuit, we've got the button. We're starting the hand off with a little bit over $300. We're going to raise it up to 20 bucks pre-flop over several limpers. I think $20 feels like a big sizing, but when you've got limpers in here, I think it's totally fine. We get one call from the small blind. It's a player who has the word crazy in his nickname, so we're not too disappointed with that. Flop comes down a great one for us. It's ace high with two clubs. When I see my crazy opponent check, I decide we're going to go ahead and bet here. What size should we use? I'm not 100% sure. I think against this player who's playing relatively short stacked, there are a few options that could be good, but we decided to go with 20 bucks, and he snap calls, like calls immediately, which makes me think he's going to have a flush draw a lot of the time, which is pretty unfortunate. We see the turn come down the four of clubs. My opponent donk leads into me for $15 here. I don't love it, as you can see, but I make the call anyway, and we are off to see a river, which comes down the four of spades. He bets out 15 again, which I think is pretty weird. Such a small size, I don't think we have a choice. We call, we show our hand, and he mucks his hands saying he had a jack. So we take this one down. Great to get off to a winning start. I think he played it pretty weirdly, said he didn't think I had an ace, which, okay, fine, but I'm the pre-flop aggressor. I'm going to have an ace here a lot of the time. Not all the time, though, so credit to him for not giving me credit, I guess. Anyway, we're stacking chips. Very first pot of the night. We're taking it down. In the next hand, we're looking down at ace again. We've got ace-jack offsuit from the cutoff, starting things off with about 380 bucks. The game is seven-handed now. I open to $15, and we see a new player who, it's going to turn out later, plays super loose pre-flop, make the call. Then we get some kind of disappointing news, and we see a tight player who's in the game a lot, in the big blind, make it $60 to go. Yeah, guys, we're not going to be in this hand the rest of the way. We're not playing ace-jack offsuit as a call against three bets, at least not in this spot. But we do see the very loose player make the call, which is not surprising at all, because eventually we'll see he calls with about 100% of hands pre-flop. Flop comes down all low cards. The three better from the big blind shoves all in, and we see the loose player fold pocket nines face up. Big blind said that he had pocket jacks, which pretty much makes sense, but I think he cost himself some money not betting a normal size here on the flop. He could have gotten called by this player who calls a lot. Looking down at ace-5 suited, we're under the gun this time. I'm going to open up to 15 bucks in this non-straddle pot. We see an active young player call from the cutoff and a very experienced player make the call from the big blind. So, we're off to see a flop. We've got a pretty good hand to see a flop with, and it's a great flop for us. We are flopping a pair and the nut flush draw, so hopefully we can play a big one in this hand. The big blind checks. I'm going to bet out $20 here. I think this is a mandatory bet pretty much all the time. The cutoff folds. And then the big blind thinks about it for a minute, shows us a 5, and makes the fold. So we're going to go ahead and show him our 5 also, and we are off to the next hand. Kind of disappointed we couldn't get some more chips in the middle here. Looking down at Jack 10 suited from the cutoff in this one, I'm going to open up to 15 bucks, and we see a call from a player we're going to play a lot of pots against in this game. It's this new player who's putting in a lot of calls pre-flop, a lot of calls. So we're off to see a flop with our Jack 10 suited, and it's King 9-3 with one diamond. So we got a backdoor flush draw and a gut shot straight draw against a player that's playing clearly a very wide range. We're going to c-bet a very wide range. We put out 20 bucks, and without thinking about it for too long, we see him make the fold. So taking down a small one, gonna see if we can win some more pots against this guy without there being too much of a contest. This could be a good spot to print some value. Looking down at King Queen offsuit from the big blind this time, we see an open from this extremely loose player. We see one call, two calls, and I make the third call. I think I could squeeze here some amount of the time, but against a player who's so likely to call pre-flop, I don't think he's going to be raising very loose. Didn't really get a chance to figure out if that's true or not throughout the session, but I think that is an idea at least that holds true. Flop's not going for us. We end up check folding to a bet from a tighter player. In the long run though, I would have rivered Broadway in this hand for the absolute nuts, so that's pretty unfortunate, but what can you do when you flop almost absolutely nothing? Looking down at Queen 10 offsuit from the button, we actually hit the record button a little bit late on this hand. We've got around 400 bucks in front of us. We see a player open to $10 and we see a call. We're gonna be in position, so we decide to go ahead and make the call also. And we go 3 ways to a flop, which is jack high, all hearts. We've got the queen of hearts, so that's not too bad of a situation for us at all. When the action checks to me, I'm seeing a lot of indifference from my opponents in this hand. I think we can just go ahead and put out a bet and take this one down. We bet $20. We see one fold, and then we see another fold. So we go ahead and take this one down, relatively uncontested. You can see we're printing a little bit of money with a little bit of, I don't know if I can quite call this aggression, but we're taking down some pots without having to go to showdown, which is a good feeling and very necessary when the game is playing relatively shorthanded like it is so far tonight. Getting into one of the more interesting hands of the evening, we look down at pocket nines from the big blind, starting this hand off about 400 bucks. We see the super loose player under the gun one, make it $15. I decide I'm going to make the call here, and I am the only caller. Against a player who calls super loose preflop, I'm worried he might be a slightly tighter opener, but who knows at this point. Flop comes down 9 high, great for us. I check, he bets $15. He can't really have much at this point. I don't want to chase him off. I just make the call. Turns an ace. I'm hoping he has something now. I check, and we see him bet $25. This is definitely a situation where I could go ahead and raise it up. I think that would be a great card for us to raise up. Surely he should have some aces in his range. Fortunately or unfortunately though, we just make the call. So almost for sure a mistake. Thought maybe he could get himself in trouble on the river, which comes down a queen. I check again, which is the only thing that makes sense at this point. He thinks for a second and checks back, showing king, queen offsuit. Miraculously, I think I got maximum value in this hand, as every time if I would have raised, he would have folded. But in theory, I think I played this one terribly. Yeah. Oh well, what are you gonna do? At least we're scooping this one in. Would have been nice to win a big hand after flopping a set though. Just a small step down from pocket nines. We're looking at 10 8 of clubs. We are in the button again, and we start the hand with about 450 bucks. I win a 15, and we see the super loose player, old reliable, make the call again. Flop comes down 7-6-2 all red. Action's checking through here. Obviously, I have nothing. Turn is the ace of spades. He checks. I'm going to go ahead and bet out here. I bet 10 bucks. Without thinking about it for too long, he goes ahead and makes the fold. So it continues to be clear this dude is calling super loose pre-flop, so let's keep making money the slow and consistent way. Small ball, as all the old school players used to say, is the way to go. We're using it here. Looking down at a premium hand, we've got ace king suited from the button. We've got about 475 bucks in front of us. There's some limpers, so I make it $20 pre-flop, and we see the super loose player and the tightest player who plays in the game make the call. So off to see a flop of all low cards with 2 clubs. Action checks to me. I'm going to go ahead and c-bet here. I do have a very strong hand that could still be best. We bet $20 and only the super nit makes the call. So that is not good news. Turn comes down, another very low club. So that's some other bad news. He's going to have a lot of flush draws here. This is exactly how he would play a flush draw. All kinds of different flush draws, in fact. He checks. I think this is just a check give up spot. Not sure what I'm doing here. I bet $45. And without thinking about it for very long, but not snap doing it, which would make me think it could be a bluff, he makes it $100 to go. Super dumb spot. I definitely torched off 45 bucks here. Kind of embarrassing how bad I tend to play ace king at times. At this point, pretty sure when you get check raised by a nit that it is time to fold. So we're going to go ahead and lay this one down and live to play another day, but we're pretty annoyed with how we played that one. Yikes. After that disaster with ace king, we're looking down at pocket nines again. We're in the big blind and starting things off with about 380 bucks. We see an active young player open to 15 bucks. I make the call, and we see the player who plays every hand make the call also. I'm glad I didn't 3-bet nines here, as I'm going to be out of position. Flop comes down, queen 10-9 rainbow though. Bang, we flop another set, but this is a very connected board. I check. We see the very loose player bet out $15. The original opener makes the call. I think this is a hand I want to check raise to balance out when I have hands like ace jack or other draws. I decide we're going to go ahead and raise it up to $65 here. We see the loose player think for a few seconds and then fold. That's some pretty terrible news. That is not what we were hoping for. And then we see the initial raiser also make the fold. So pretty depressing. We've had 2 sets. We haven't really gotten paid on any of them. This is a decent little pot at least, but not what you're hoping to get against a very loose player and a very active player who are both in a hand against you on a pretty wet board when you have a set. We're going to go ahead and take this one down. It's just not exactly what we were hoping for. Oh well, Stacking chips, not a bad thing. Looking down at pocket jiggities in this one, we're in the small blind. We see a open from the loose calling station type player, which is starting to make us think that maybe he's opening pretty loose too. And we see an active player also make the call off of a very short stack. So I'm going to raise it up here. I make it $60 to go. We see the loose player call and we see the active player call for $60, and he is all in. So we've got $180 in the middle, and we've got a dry side pot, so kind of a weird situation, but we are off to see a flop. Not the worst flop we could have ever imagined. There's only one overcard. I decide that I'm going to check because of that overcard, though. I don't think there's a benefit into betting into a dry side pot, at least not right now, and we see the middle position player check back. So that's some good news. I think if he had a queen, he wouldn't be able to help himself. He'd probably bet here. Turn comes down 3 of clubs. This is a very safe board for me. I think I can go for value. I bet $35 into the dry side pot, and we see a snap call. So that's a little bit concerning, but not too bad. I don't think he's going to have very many queens here. River comes down the 8 of hearts. I'm not going to go for more value here. I check, middle position, insta checkbacks. We show our hand praying not to see a queen from either opponent, and we take it down. Biggest pot so far tonight. Let's freaking go. Building the stack, building some momentum. A little bit after that pocket jacks hand, we see the nittiest player in the game pick up and leave, making the game only 5-handed. Kind of rude if you ask me, especially if you're that type of player, but whatever. I get aces twice and basically win nothing, so that's a little bit disappointing, but what are you going to do? When you're looking down at aces, though, you're really hoping you can get some money in the middle, especially against a player who's seemingly calling everything pre-flop, but that's not what happens. That's okay. We're looking down at 5-3 of diamonds, and we are about to get ourselves into some trouble. We're under the gun here. I try and open to 20 bucks over button straddle, but it turns out there was a double straddle for $12 from the small blind that I did not see. So now that I only put in 20, I can only complete the raise to 24. If I would have seen the double straddle, I would have just folded, but here we are. The button straddler calls, and so does the small blind. We're off to see a flop, which comes down with 1 diamond and a 4. So I guess we've got some backdoors. The small blind checks. I bet out $30, and the button isn't having any of it. Pretty smartly raises to $85. We see a call, which puts the player all in. Obviously, I'm folding here. I just lit like 50 bucks on fire. I guess I need to pay better attention. The double straddler player is playing every hand. Maybe we need to up our open sizing. I don't know. Regardless, and most importantly here, we made a dumb mistake. So we're folding. We're out of there. Lit some money on fire. Whoops. Okay, so I think you guys pretty much know how I feel about bomb pots at this point, but we're playing it to be sociable. The game's either 5 or 6 handed at this point, so it's fairly short-handed. Everybody wants to do bomb pots every so often, so fine. I'll do it. I'll treat it as a little bit of extra rake, right? No big deal. We're looking down at 7 deuce 3-3 and a $15 double board bomb pot. Board number 1, 5 deuce 3, so we've got a set. Board number 2, 7 4 9, so we've got a pair. Not too much cooking on that one. I'm a little shady on the details, but I believe there's a bet of less than pot on the flop, and we went 3 ways to the turn. Obviously, I'm going to call on the flop with my set and pair on the other board. I think that's pretty standard. Let me know, though. You guys in the comments will know way more about bomb pot strategy than me. Obviously, not a good turn for me on board 1, completing lots of straights, but we could always have the board pair and that one and hitting trips on board 2 gives us lots of equity on both boards. So on the turn, action checks to me. I think after hitting trips here and seeing my opponent's check to me, it's time to pile money in. I bet pot for what looks to be about $240, and we see the player to our left shove all in. Well, that freaking sucks. I call in for my last $138 or $140, whatever it is, making this a nearly $1,000 pot. It turns out, once the cards are on their backs, our opponent has the straight we were afraid of on board 1, but only a flush draw on board 2, so we're in decent shape and we are off to see some very important river cards. Bang! We spike quads on the first board with a miracle 3. Thank you very much, dealer. And then on the river on board 2, we see the board pairing with a 9, which means our trips there are good. We are scooping in a massive one. I do not enjoy bomb pots, as you guys well know, but this one was so pivotal in our session, I had to let you know about it. These still feel almost like pure gambling to me, but we're pumped to take this one down. We're stacking up a whole bunch of chips, so that never feels bad. I think we played it okay. Please get in the comments and tell me what you think about this, as I do not know what I'm doing in these bomb pots. I read all the comments and I respond to all of them, so whatever you guys have to say, I'll see it. So let me know if you think I was totally punting here or if I was in pretty good shape. After donging off some money in a bomb pot that I have no notes on at all, I look down at Ace King offsuit once again. We've got about 775 bucks in front of us. We're on the button. We see a young player in earlier position open to 10. Action folds to me. I'm going to raise it up to 50 bucks. The big blind, who is the player who plays almost every hand, makes the call, which is something we were kind of banking on, and the initial opener calls. Much rather would have seen the initial opener fold, but what are you going to do? Flop comes down a paired board. It's 8-7-7, and the action checks to me. So I think this is a spot we're going to continuation bet. All of my pocket pairs are going to look super good here. So we're going to go ahead and c-bet to $80. We see the big blind player make the call pretty quickly, but not like a snap call. And we see the initial opener fold pretty quickly. So clearly that was a miss for him. Not sure what he would have had, but no way to know now. Turn comes down the 5 of clubs. We see our opponent check. And I think this is a good chance to pot control and check back. Also, I have very little going on this board for me, and obviously his range is the entire deck, so it's hard to put him on a hand. Would he fold any pair to me here if I bet? I don't think so. So river comes down, the 3 of spades, he checks again. I don't think we can really bluff him off of anything here. I check back, he turns over the ace of spades, and then the jack of spades. I'm pretty sure I was prepared to call a bet here on the river as he was looking really weak in this hand, so maybe I could have hero called with ace king high. But regardless, we take down a very nice sized pot for hitting absolutely nothing with our hand. We take this one down, feels pretty good. We've got pocket fives in this one, and we are in the cutoff. We got around 950 bucks in front of us. We see a competent player in the hijack open to $10. I call, and we see the dude on the button make 45 bucks to go. He's playing pretty deep stacked, so is my other opponent, and when we see the initial raiser make the call, I'm going to call also. One-time dealer, let's see a 5. A 5 could really send this night into the stratosphere. Flop comes down, ace, 7. So no 5s here. The initial raiser had bet $5 dark. I call, and the button makes the call also. So we're going to get to see a free turn card, or a $5 turn card in this very bloated pot. Turn comes down, the 8. So unfortunate turn of events, if you will. Action ends up checking to the button player, who is going to put out a bet here. He's wagering $55. That's going to get us out of there. We see the first opponent fold. I'm going to fold also, and the player who takes this pot down shows ace 4 suited. So he flop trips. He was going to win this one pretty much all day unless I spiked that 5. So, oh well, off to the next. Looking down at ace jack offsuit from under the gun, I've got about $900 in front of me. I open to 15 bucks. We see a player to our left call and a player from across the table make the call also. So we're off to see a flop which comes down 10-8-4 with 1 spade. Unfortunately, I thought the 10 of clubs was the 10 of spades. It is not. We see a check. I check. The last player to act bets 30. We see a call from across the table, and I'm going to make the call also under the impression that there were 2 spades on the flop, and we've got the backdoor nut spade draw. We do not. Turn comes down a blank. I see the 10 as a club and not a spade. I end up check folding, and as the hand eventually plays out, we see the player to our left actually had pocket aces, so we were not going to be winning this hand. Oh well, yikes, made a mistake. Guess our eyes are getting old and we can't see across the table like we used to be able to. Anyway, we've got a nice stack. We're going to go ahead and rack up. Things have been going well.
Look at that 500 I gave you. It's about 5, right?
Bomb pots are dumb. I have no idea.
It's close.
I'd have to look back my notes. Bomb pots are dumb.
Well, guys, that's another winning session. Put that one on the board, winning $525, in for $300, out for $825. Great night. Winning a bunch of money in a bomb pot, which is not exactly how we're trying to do things, but we'll take it. Put another one on the board. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you're new. We appreciate it. Let's share this video with a friend if you know anybody that likes poker. We're kind of doing it, guys. We're kind of making it work. So maybe we can keep this rolling. Have a good one. See you next time.